Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Today, we're going to retrace a tale of great woe. It is woeful what's happening. Evangelical Christian, far-right extremist white nationalist militias who are acting as their strike force, MAGA politicians, and a couple Supreme Court justices have been working tirelessly, in many cases successfully, in reshaping our democracy into an authoritarian theocracy overseen by the folks I just mentioned. Throw in some abortion, some drag queens, talk of rescinding the Constitution, banning contraceptives for starters, and the kind of society they have planned for us begins to take shape. So let's get to it.
Moments ago, we got an update from officials in North Carolina after the FBI joined an investigation there into, quote, intentional and targeted attacks that left tens of thousands of North Carolinians without power. Utility crews responding to the outages found at least 2 power substations damaged by gunfire in Moore County. That's about an hour southwest of Raleigh.
Turning now to a shooting near Duke Energy facility in South Carolina. It comes just days after attack on 2 Duke Energy substations in North Carolina. Investigators have now filed for federal search warrants in the North Carolina shooting, and now power stations in other states are reporting recent attacks. At least 5 power substations were reportedly attacked in Oregon and Washington last month. ABC News contributor and former acting undersecretary for intelligence at the Department of Homeland Security, John Cohen, is here with more on that. John, thanks for being here. You know, more and more power companies are now reporting recent attacks to the FBI. How concerning is that?
Well, it is concerning. For months, law enforcement has been evaluating content on neo-Nazi and anti-government forums, not only calling for these types of attacks, but providing instructional material on how people can conduct attacks. There have been past incidents attributed to neo-Nazi and anti-government extremists where they've actually sought to damage parts of the power grid. And now we're going back and seeing that there were a number of suspicious incidents going back months, if not years.
Police have not identified any suspects nor provided a motive for those attacks. Investigators have found nearly 24 shell casings from a high-powered rifle. Writings by extremists on online forums encouraging attacks on critical infrastructure are pointing to a possible motive. In the past 2 years, anti-government groups have been using online forums to urge followers to attack critical infrastructure, including the power grid. They've posted documents and even instructions outlining vulnerable targets and suggesting the use of high-powered rifles. Extremist militias, evangelical preachers, and MAGA politicians have been targeting the LGBTQ community, and they've been disrupting events across the nation. The attack on the power grid comes after weeks of threats and hours of protest from far-right activists against the Downtown Divas drag show, which was set to take place at Sunrise Theater the night the power grid was taken out. And it was seemingly buoyed by a cryptic post from an opponent of drag performances, a Facebook post that said, "The power is out in Moore County and I know why," which made the internet explode. It turns out it was just Emily Rainey, the official spokeswoman for God, directing her to exploit an act of terrorism and blame the gay people someplace where, you know, would really matter. Facebook. God is so proud of her right now. You have no idea. Rainey's a former U.S. Army PSYOPs officer. Great. She left the military while under investigation for leading a group of about 100 people, many of whom were stationed at Fort Bragg along with her, from North Carolina to the Capitol on January 6th. She was also being investigated for illegal activity around the fort area, failure to obey the police. She posted a video from Southern Pines, North Carolina, which is about 30 miles from Fort Bragg, in which she pulled down yellow tape surrounding a playground that was closed due to COVID-19 restrictions at the height of the pandemic. She was charged with injury to personal property over the incident. The police said that they left her off with several warnings before she tore the tape down that was closing off the playground. She just refused their orders. She has been a vocal opponent of drag shows in the state, and the day before, she called on people to protest the drag show. In a follow-up post, along with a photograph of the Sunrise Theater, she wrote, "God will not be mocked." Oh, Emily. About an hour after the show began, the power went out, but they just kept going for another 45 minutes because you don't mess with drag queens. They illuminated the theater with their cell phones, and they just started singing. And then after that, they made the decision to cancel the show to ensure that everyone's was able to leave safely. Southern Pines Christian school leaders had claimed that the drag performance targets children, and that is a refrain that we will hear so often. In a letter dated November 21st, Calvary Christian School administrators urged parents to contact the town council, the theater, and show sponsors to ask for the event to be canceled. The letter said the LGBTQ forces are coming to Southern Pines and they are after our children. This is their target audience to peddle their abomination. And now a string of attacks on power facilities in Oregon and Washington have occurred, more in South Carolina, and the attacks in the Pacific Northwest are similar to the assault on the North Carolina power stations. North Carolina is offering a $75,000 reward. That seems a little bit on the measly side to me, but also comes on the heels of a year that saw over 300 bills specifically targeting the LGBTQ community. Bills that have strong backing from deep-pocketed conservative organizations on the Christian right, like the Alliance Defending Freedom. The Department of Homeland Security, in a terrorism advisory bulletin issued November 30th, raised concerns about potential threats to the LGBTQ, Jewish, and migrant communities from violent extremists in this country. The bulletin said some extremists have been inspired by recent attacks, including the shooting at Club Q. There's been a drastic increase in anti-LGBTQ and specifically anti-trans violence and discrimination all year, from state legislators to federal Republican officials to conservative groups who seem to tirelessly go after gay people. Drag queens have become the focal point for propaganda that seems to imply or seems to state outright that they're grooming children or essentially preying on children. That has catalyzed protests by well-armed far-right militias like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, who will show up to drag shows to show force and intimidation against attendees. So much so that many shows have been canceled. It also activates nut jobs like Ethan Schmidt, a right-wing lunatic who's made videos with Carrie Lake, Wendy Rogers, and Paul Gosar, who warned Target that he will hunt lesbian and gay supporters in the Target stores across Phoenix, stating that they are not safe and they can't hide.
So guys, this June, me and my boy Kyle, we're going to be exposing Target. So, Target, you might as well perma-ban me forever across all your stores in the United States, because if you don't, we're going to be coming to every single one, and we're going to be exposing every single Pride, Pride shrine, satanic Pride shrines for children. We're going to be exposing every single one. We're going to be pressing all the managers at every single Target. We're going to find and expose all the LGBT supporters, at all the employees that support it. We're going to be exposing them. We're going to make massive scenes in every single Target across Phoenix, Arizona. And we're not going to let corporate poison the children. So Target, we're giving you a heads up that, we're going to be coming after you hard. I've already exposed you guys pretty good, but, this is going to be next level stuff. So,
Christ wins, LGBT loses.
Yeah. I also like to hunt LGBT supporters on my free time. That's one of my favorite pastimes, We're also, we're going to be going on hunting expeditions pretty soon. Hunting the LGBT supporters across Arizona and Phoenix. So, keep an eye out for that, because, you're not safe. If you support the LGBT agenda, you're not safe. You're not safe. Right, Kyle?
Yep.
You're not safe.
No.
They're not safe.
Ethan finds you. Ethan finds everyone.
Yep. Can't hide from me.
Ethan Schmidt here, in the beautiful state of Arizona. And I love women more than anybody. But you know what I don't like is women in politics. The last thing we need is women in politics and women in positions of power. It really shows the collapse of society. Stop having all these women in positions of power, political power. It's the last thing the country needs.
Okay, I was going to save commentary until the end, but I just can't. What a creep. This guy, first of all, looks like a discount Snidely Whiplash who was conceived during a really bad 90s porno. And he's a sad but successful product of indoctrination looking for a little attention. It would be funny, except Ethan Schmidt is among a growing number of right-wing activists who label their opponents as pedophiles before advocating for violence against them, all the while trying to build their own social media fan base. He's got the same problem as these militia members. He's allowed himself to be manipulated by far-right extremist ideological nonsense that exploits extreme toxic masculinity in an effort to recruit and retain members. Like many so-called Christian militia extremists use a sense of victimization by the state, expectations around masculine roles pushed back against changing gender roles, and idealization of characterized warrior masculinities to drive recruitment, retention, and broader strategic decisions. This involves constructing masculinities based on violence and the subjugation of women, or the protection of the Christian community from outside villains. It's literally textbook stuff we're dealing with here, and they're skipping around like they've never opened a history book.
Jillian, we've been getting emails and messages about this all day. They were here right across the street for a couple of hours. They left at around 4:30. They showed up here to protest a drag show brunch happening today here in Sanford. They marched around with signs, recruiting people at one point, and taking selfies with other supporters. We spoke with the owner here who organized the event. She says the past few hours have been chaotic, and she doesn't want it to overshadow the event and the cause. The goal of this brunch here today was to uplift the LGBTQ community.
They are labeling our group in such a way that would incite violence against them. And this is very concerning to us because we've gotten some death threats and things like that. And when they call us things like pedophiles and things like that, what that does is it allows folks in the community to kind of like give themselves permission to use that extremist view to perpetrate violence upon our community.
And with drag queen Panda Dulce ended like this.
Did you guys call the cops?
It was stormed by 8 Proud Boys who disrupted the event.
The incident occurred Saturday, and witnesses who wanted to stay anonymous say the group that disrupted the event was acting aggressively and yelling offensive slurs against the LGBTQ plus community.
They came in and they were screaming about like pedophilia and saying things like, we have to save the children. And I mean, they were terrifying the children.
The performer.
Okay, cool. Okay, right. security. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, hey, look, we don't have any problem with you guys being out here. Just make sure that you're practicing, safe firearms. Everybody's got their muzzle down. I'm happy to see that. I don't have any issues with that. The big issue that we want to make sure is that, we're allowing the flow of traffic. And then if there are any pedestrians that are coming through, that we're, facilitating them getting through. So we really hope that everything goes smoothly. I expect that it will. Everybody I've talked to today has been very nice, very professional. So you'll see us. We'll be in the powder blue. We'll be your point of contact. Okay. You talk to some guys up here. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Children.
But I'm certainly going to watch and send this into the police right now. Hold on. I'm calling the police. Hey, I just got in the back. I'm calling the police. Those are all old people. Like, do you know where we're at? They're getting in the back of the U-Haul. Yeah, I'm calling the police and they're pushing.
Hi. How you doing? How you doing? Good. I know who you are. You know who you are? Go. Because you got bitch tits. You need some fucking soy milk or fuck.
Dozens of LGBTQ pride events were targeted by white nationalist groups recently, like the group of armed protesters who showed up outside of a Texas church to protest a drag bingo night, and the firebombing that took place at a donut shop doing a charity auction benefiting the LGBTQ community. A number of the drag events targeted by threats and protests were first targeted by right-wing media outlets like Fox News and the Daily Wire, and then by the local religious communities. The outlets and accounts often misrepresented what would occur at these upcoming drag events, spinning them as harmful to children, and protests or threats would follow. A Media Matters report from June found that Fox News had devoted more hours to targeting drag queens and transgender people than to the coverage of the January 6th insurrection hearings. Their analysis in November found that the disturbing misinformation about drag had ramped up on Fox News and the Daily Wire in the weeks before the Tulsa firebombing at the donut shop, with Tucker Carlson falsely claiming that drag queens want to sexualize children, and the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh calling on police to break down the doors of these LGBTQ clubs and arrest drag queens. Sometimes the targeting came full circle, with right-wing media hyping up negative attention ahead of an event and continuing afterwards. In June, an Idaho Pride in the Park event where 31 anti-gay protesters were arrested, militia members, ahead of the event, saying that a family-friendly drag dance party was being promoted by the Idaho Satanic Temple. Right-wing media evangelicals protested a family-friendly drag event at a distillery in Roanoke, Texas in August. The protest was based on the idea that performers were attempting to groom the children in attendance. GLAAD found 124 incidents in 2022 of anti-LGBTQ protests and threats targeting specific drag events. The majority of the incidents occurred during Pride festivities in June and into September, October, and November, including false rhetoric against performers deployed in campaign ads for the midterm elections. Their analysis shows increasingly violent rhetoric and incidents as the year progressed, including that firebombing that had hosted a drag charity event this past October. News reports cited hundreds of incidents targeting drag events in 47 states in 2022.
Let's be clear. Obergefell is not in danger, but people and institutions of faith are. This hollow amendment provides no tangible protections for religious schools, no protections for faith-based adoption and foster care agencies, no protections for Christian businesses who contract with the government, and no protections for civil servants that justly believe marriage is just between a man and a woman. The bill's implications: submit to our ideology or be silenced. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you my priority: protect religious liberty, protect people of faith, and protect Americans who believe in the true meaning of marriage. I hope and pray that my colleagues will find the courage to join me in opposing this misguided and this dangerous bill. I yield back.
Aw, don't cry, little Talibangelical lady. Dry those crocodile tears. You don't need protection from the scary people who don't share your life experiences. Why are you so overwrought on the House floor there at the thought that gay people should have the same right to be happily, or miserably, I guess, married as you do, that you gotta have a good cry about it right there in front of God and everyone, over other people who aren't sticking their noses into your business, aren't trying to tell you how to live, aren't even offering to replace that 1970s Carpathian leather jacket for you. Sounds to me an awful lot like you want the protection to hate gay people. You want protection to control their lives. You want the right to force your ideas of how they should live onto them. It sounds a lot like you want the right to discriminate against them, and you want the government to enshrine that right for you. And that, little Talibangelical lady, is a jerk move.
Homosexual in 2022, here in the New Testament, here in the book of Romans, are worthy of death. These people should be put to death. Every single homosexual in our country should be charged with the crime, the abomination of homosexuality that they have. They should be convicted in a lawful trial. They should be sentenced with death. They should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head. That's what God teaches. That's what the Bible says. You don't like it, you don't like God's word, because that is what God says.
That charming fella is Pastor Dylan Oz of the Steadfast Baptist Church in Hurst, Texas. He fills in when the main demagogue, Pastor Jonathan Shelley, is out getting his talent sharpened. The church has a special distinction of being designated an anti-LGBTQ hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's right, they've got their own page. They must be so proud. Old Dylan here, he's a fanboy of biblical rules in which marriage is a sacred and personal institution between a man and his 60 or so wives. In this Sunday's sermon, which took place during the first week of Pride Month, in an oft-used dog whistle, Oz alleges that all gay people are pedophiles and that all child molesters are gay. He argues that it is for that reason they should all be killed. Whoa there, fanboy. Ease up on the clown car gas pedal. Turns out it's not drag queens and gay people who are doing those nasty things, and you'd lose over 700 members of the Southern Baptist Convention.
These people are going to take you down a dark path. You start hanging around with a bunch of faggots and lesbians, you know what they're going to do? They're going to ply you with alcohol or ply you with drugs, and they're going to abuse you. They're going to molest you. They are going to get you into some weird junk that you have no desire to get into. Stay away from them. They are evil. They are freaks. They are predators. They're not reproducers. They are recruiters. They are molesters. They are predators.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if you had to take a sanity test before you could call yourself a pastor? This guy's like a walking, talking hate bot. This is the inveterate, the incurable Pastor Steven Anderson. His specialty is strategically peddling his hatred of gay people and spreading the good news of the Bible, by condemning everyone to death. He's a proponent of the subjugation of women, along with his hatred of gay people, and he's a staunch Holocaust denier because, well, of course he is. And in foreshadowing of current events, in 2009, Anderson told his congregation that he hated Obama and would pray that he died and went to hell. And then a member of his congregation showed up at an Obama appearance, armed with an assault rifle and a pistol.
God is raising up armies that we're going to start having civil disobedience in America. Y'all not talking back to me. Just like the Montgomery Improvement Association that led the boycott that Rosa Parks led, that shut down the busing system in Montgomery, Alabama, we are going to shut down this America that's led by the racist, liberal, race-baiting Democrats.
Vote Democrat, I don't even want you around this church. You can get out. You can get out, you demon. You can get out, you baby butchering election thief. You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. I don't care how mad that makes you. You get pissed off as you want to. You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. They are God-denying demons that butcher babies and hate this nation. Hey, want to talk about the insurrection? Let me tell you something. You ain't seen the insurrection yet. You keep on pushing our buttons, you low-down sorry compromisers. You God-hating communist America. You'll find out what an insurrection is, because we ain't playing your garbage. We ain't playing your mess. My Bible says that the church of the living God is an institution that the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And the Bible says that we'll take it by force. That's what the Bible says.
People say, oh, Lance, I don't know, you sound like a Christian nationalist. Yes, I am a Christian nationalist. And I will take the flag that God gave us with this blessed freedom and blessed government and blessed nation, and I will take that flag and lead them to the cross. Give me the flag, and I'll carry it all the way to Calvary, and I'll plant it there where the cross is, and say, there's the one that gave you the nation. There's the only one that can save this nation. We've got to give our lives to Jesus.
I also believe we have, on top of that, we have a really good court case, and we're going to open people's eyes to what went wrong. There's times I felt, just like the voters out there in Arizona, despondent over the last couple of weeks, because we have such an amazing movement. And then I think about what God, our Father is doing. Imagine if your dad said to you, I have such great hope for you, and I believe in you so much that I'm going to put you in charge of something difficult. And that's what he's saying to us. He's saying, I've put you all here for these difficult times because I have such faith in you. I know how strong you are. So I'm taking this battle. We're in, you used a baseball, Rick, you used a baseball analogy. I'll use a football analogy. We're in overtime. You don't walk off the field in overtime. Right. God put us here in overtime.
Righteous men rule. The people rejoice. Not when these morons rule. Make no apology for that. You fix everything you took away and we'll quit calling you that. put gas back at $1.50 and fix the interest rate and get rid of masks and quit giving us viruses that are killing us and quit giving our kids money not to work so they raise up lazy and restore our small businesses that 60% of them went out of business and bankruptcies and I don't know what you do about all the people that died that shouldn't have died and all the funerals we didn't get to go to because of COVID. You fix all of that and then I'll change what I call you. And none of that happened when Trump was president. That ought to be enough right there to ask him to come back.
And what we must do is repeal 17. Otherwise, you're going to have a blue House and a blue Senate. And ladies and gentlemen, you cannot govern that way. I knew it when I saw Herschel Walker lose that election, and I saw a massive turnout of red all over that state. Matter of fact, it was more of a turnout than they were expecting. The state showed up to get a red representative, a senator. However, Atlanta said, no, not today. We're going to give you Warlock. It's not fair. And what we must do is repeal 17. Otherwise, you're going to have a blue House and a blue Senate. And ladies and gentlemen, you cannot govern that way. I knew it when I saw Herschel Walker.
My recruitment of wealthy donors as stealth missionaries who befriended justices that shared our conservative social and religious sensibilities. In this way, I aimed to show these justices that Americans supported them and thanked God for their presence on the court and the opinions they rendered. Our overarching goals were to gain insights into the conservative justices' thinking and to shore up their resolve to render solid, unapologetic opinions, particularly against abortion. I called this our ministry of emboldenment. It was not an attempt to change minds. Beyond convivial small talk, our missionaries did not engage liberal members of the court. My recruits for Operation Higher Court were older, highly accomplished, and independently minded. They did not take kindly to being told where to go, what to do, or how to do it. Successfully deploying them required their autonomy. I did suggest tactics to cultivate affinity, but otherwise our folks were on their own. Most of them limited their support to regular prayers on behalf of the justice's family, warm personal greetings and assurances of goodwill at social functions, and sending greeting cards on special occasions. But they might also host justices or their spouses for meals at restaurants, private clubs, or their homes, and sometimes the justices reciprocated.
We have many groups working together to redefine American identity to reflect authoritarian, dominionist Christian identity. Don't like that your policies don't speak to the needs or answer the needs of the majority of people? By all means, don't readjust your platform. Just take away people's rights to choose their representatives. Force yourself on them. Dominionist preachers like Lou Engle and Cindy Jacobs figured prominently in current events. Dominionists are part of the new apostolic Reformation movement that seeks to bring about a theocratic government here in the United States. NAR considers those with different views to be infidels who are under the influence of demonic forces. Their core political manifesto is the Seven Mountains Mandate. This philosophy instructs Bible-believing Christians to seek control of 7 key sectors of society, known as mountains, which is education, government, media, business, arts and entertainment, religion, and the family. And they have made great inroads into meeting this goal. They believe their church must prevail because these areas are currently occupied by darkness. Engel, for example, has taught followers that the church's vocation is to rule history with God. And Jacob similarly has said the government of God must be established. Both of them regularly make claims about their spiritual abilities, claiming they're prophets and they can heal the sick and raise the dead. I mean, my question is, why haven't they? But some people say I'm a nitpicker. Engel has said that America has become like Nazi Germany because of gay rights. He helped fan the flames of hate in Uganda at a time when the nation was debating whether to enact the infamous Kill the Gays bill, and it was indeed passed with the help of evangelical leaders from the United States who went to Uganda to play around with their politics. Another dim bulb in the NIR world is Jacobs, who was widely mocked after she claimed that thousands of birds and fish were dying in Arkansas because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. And Trump repeatedly met with them as part of his evangelical advisory group, and they blessed him for his obedience to enacting their social agenda. The NIR has been intimately tied to Russia and has a deep kinship with Putin, bordering on hero worship. The movement has supported that country's violent crackdown and attempted suppression of LGBTQ people there. How many churches provide direct electoral support to far-right candidates for political office? How many of these churches have members who participated in the January 6th insurrection and in all of these anti-LGBTQ protests, radicalized in part by their pastors' extremist teachings and preachings? How many have members who are prepared to commit political violence? Why aren't any of these churches denouncing these far-right militias? You know, we don't know the answers to these questions, but what we do know about the ties between Christian nationalist churches, far-right political candidates, and members of white supremacist and patriot militia groups is enough to underscore the importance of the question. While there's been significant media coverage of individual cases of close ties between candidates or militia groups or churches, the broader pattern deserves more scrutiny, and it deserves someone to be putting the puzzle pieces together so you can see the whole picture. And it doesn't feel helpful to learn that more than 300 individuals on a leaked membership list of the far-right militia group, the Oath Keepers, describe themselves as current and or former employees of the Department of Homeland Security. Members were employed at DHS components such as the Border Patrol, Coast Guard, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the Secret Service. According to a review by the Project on Government Oversight, which obtained that leaked document. Ironically, an agency with the mission of countering domestic violent extremism published a study in March of this year which found that the department has significant gaps that have impeded its ability to comprehensively prevent, detect, and respond to potential threats related to domestic violent extremists within the Department of Homeland Security. You can't make this stuff up, people. So this is the end of part one. I didn't want to make it too long. I'll be delving further into these deep connections, sharing advice that I've received from experts in the field and what we can do in the upcoming election year to safeguard ourselves and our democracy. Thank you so much for joining me. I do appreciate the time you spent with me. We'll see you soon. Thank you.